Silo, good morning, everybody.
Good morning, sir.
Thank you. Yes.
My apologies. Good morning, Chair. Before I start, Ms. Mento, I think, has indicated she would like to address you.
Yes.
You may grant her the opportunity. Thank you, Chair.
Yes, Ms. Mentor.
Good morning, Chair.
Good morning.
Thank you very much. I don't want to waste time, but I would like to address you about a few things that were canvassed yesterday.
Yes.
I will not be long.
Yes, sure.
They had to do partly with the part concession I made.
Yes.
Firstly, that related to Home Affairs records, but they also have to do with SAA records. And then the issue I want to raise, also one of them relates to the Emirates records that were put before me yesterday.
Yes.
Chair, yesterday I know that we did agree that an expert on SAA would be required.
Well, it wasn't said an expert, it was simply said a witness.
Yes, sorry.
Yeah.
Thanks for correcting me, Chair.
Okay.
A witness, SAA witness would be called. I don't have a problem with that. I would however request the chair that if the chair could possibly look into calling another person that knows the related to any airline independent of SAA, or an airline expert or / computer expert, as the records of SAA as they stand before me, because I question them. If it is SAA itself that comes to examine the record, I was wondering.
Well, the witness from SAA would come for the purposes of explaining to us, of telling us whether those records are indeed SAA records. That's number one. Two, also to explain how their records are done, so that we can also see what room for error there may be. That's what the witness will cover or should cover, and maybe other matters. Yes.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay.
About the Home Affairs records of...
Maybe I should then say, it's not clear to me why we would need anybody else to come and testify about SAA records, because what we are looking at is the accuracy of SAA records. That witness would be questioned to see if he or she is able to answer satisfactorily all issues that are connected with the records. Yes.
Thank you, Chair. Your first clarification to me about what the witness would be called to do has
Yes.
answered my concern.
Okay.
So,
okay. Yes.
because of your explanation, I am
Yes.
at ease
Yes,
regarding
okay.
the witness that would be called from SAA.
Okay. All
Thank
right.
you, Chair.
Okay, thank you.
The second issue is the Home Affairs records. I also have a serious problem with the Home Affairs records that were put before me yesterday, and that is why I cannot make a full concession that AJ may not have traveled according to those records. I would like to bring it to the attention of the Chair that there has been parliamentary inquiry
Yes.
into Home Affairs, and they have announced that they would be forwarding the report of that inquiry to the Chair and this commission. And I would like to highlight to the Chair that what came out of that proceedings, as I watched them, forms the basis of my questioning of the Home Affairs records that were put before me yesterday. So until the Chair has received those, the inquiry report from the parliamentary inquiry on home affairs. I'm not making a full concession that AJ may not have traveled out of the country at the time that the home affairs that were put before me yesterday suggest.
Okay, well, Parliament has forwarded certain reports to this commission. I'm not able to mention all of them, and I can't remember how many, but it's certainly not one. I think that either you or your legal representatives, if you think there is something in a report that already exists from Parliament or in Parliament that may provide a basis for saying those records from Home Affairs are not reliable, I think it would be good if you or your legal team could look into that and be able to say, here is what we find in the report that makes us suggest that those records from Home Affairs are not reliable, or that there's something wrong with them. Because then it's easy for the legal team of the commission to focus on that and rather than to look all over the report. Okay.
Thanks, Chair.
But I think the legal team will also look at the possibility of bringing a witness from Home Affairs who can explain how their records are kept and so on.
Okay, Chair.
Yes.
May I raise my last issue, Chair?
Yes.
Thank you, Chair. Yesterday I was asked about whether I could have traveled in October in and out of Johannesburg on the journey I report ended up being my journey in Saxon World.
Yes, yes.
Now, Chair, from my evidence that I've tabled before the commission, there are a confluence of events and issues that discount the date that was proposed to me as having been in October. And if I may just name them, they are three and they are quick.
Yes.
One, Chair, in my evidence, I said, I remember saying to the president in Saxon World, please forgive me, sir, for refusing to see you 2 weeks ago in China. That's the first thing. The second thing that I have also mentioned in my evidence previously is that Ajay Gupta, both in Sahara, in their Sahara building, in the offices, as well as in Saxon World, told me that the president was delayed because he was having a meeting with COSATU at Luthuli House. I have done a search, Chair. Indeed, there was a strike and there was a meeting in Luthuli House where the NBOs, the leadership of COSATU, meaning their top, what is equivalent
Yes.
to the top 6 in the ANC,
Yes.
were meeting the top 6 of the ANC on
Yes.
on a particular day that corresponds to 2 weeks after the China trip.
visit.
Yes, yes,
Yes.
Chair. The diary of the president, as presented before the commission, also indicates that on a Monday, that is close to 2 weeks after the China trip, he
Yes.
was indeed in a meeting in the Luthuli House. So
Yes.
there is a confluence of those issues that flow from my evidence previously
Yes, yes.
that actually forms the basis for me to say that it is not in October,
Yes.
as I was made to suggest, if I'm willing to concede yesterday,
Yes.
that my travel to Saxon World might have been in October. So I just needed to
Yes.
put that before you, Chair.
Yes. No, thank you. The, the one relating to the COSATU strike and the former president having been in a meeting in Luthuli House, I'm sure Ms. Silo will apply her mind to that and, if need be, put some questions to you or indicate to me what the position is. I've seen some parts of the former president's diary, but I've not been able to, there's nothing that's that has been put up to say how accurate those are. By that, what I mean is you could have a plan over a week to have X number of meetings with different people, but all those could change if certain things happen. So it's important also to know to what extent those were adhered to, you know, and if they were changed, would that be reflected in the diary, or can one take it that everything happened as per the diary? But Ms. Silo will apply her mind. She heard what you said in regard to that. She'll apply her mind and she will indicate what she has to say about that. That was the last issue you wanted to raise, the one about the former president and the COSATU strike.
The
on
very last one
Monday.
is a request, Chair,
Yes.
to the legal team and the investigators.
Yes, yes.
It's a request I have made repeatedly that I would like to make again before you,
yes,
Chair.
Yes.
I've asked the legal team to check for me if the Gupta family, in person or through their companies, in terms of the records, owned a black twin cam in 2010, because that can be verified through the records. Because I would not have known if they owned it, because in my statement I have claimed that
Yes.
that's the vehicle they used to pick me up with from the airport. So I'm still making that request for
Yes.
that verification to be done.
No, actually, that's one of the things I wanted to raise with you today, this morning. I had also asked the legal team that arrangements should be made for the investigators to check exactly that. I have not been informed whether it was done, and if it was done, what the outcome of that investigation is. So it's an important thing to check. I had already said last year it should be looked into. So if it hasn't been looked into, it definitely will be looked into.
Thank you, Chair.
Yes. Thank you. Ms. Silo?
Thank you, Chair. Chair, before we get into the testimony of Ms. Mento, I would like to bring the following to the Chair's attention. As the Chair
Yes.
will recall, Mr. Mtolo and Ms. Kaunda have been granted leave to cross-examine Ms. Mento.
Yes.
Both filed their applications in 2018, and these are to be found, Chair, for your convenience in D3.
Yes.
It's the first two applications in D3.
Yeah.
After Ms. Kaunda had filed her application, and it had been for cross-examination, and it had been considered by you, Chair, she filed a further affidavit with annexures,
Yes.
and in particular annexing her telephone records. And that pack is to be found in D6, Chair, D6A.
Yes, what page in D6A?
Starting at page 110 up to 175, Chair.
135,
175.
175.
So the original
Thank you.
Kaunda application ought to be read together with these documents or the supplementary affidavit in D6, Chair.
Okay, no, that's fine. Yeah, okay, all right.
Sorry,
Thank you.
Chair.
Yes. Ms.
Ms.
Mentor?
Refilwe,
Yes.
my file doesn't, can I have another file, please? I'm struggling to, there's something wrong with the,
Oh, it's too full, I think.
yes, so,
Yeah. Okay, they'll assist you just now. Did you split D6A and D6B for her to be in two separate liver arch files,
The-
as arranged yesterday?
As arranged, they were being split as of this morning, and I see deliveries are coming in, Chair. We had requested the two separate, that they be filed separately for ease of turning pages.
But has it been done now?
I am considering the files that have been brought in now. I see they are D1, Chair, to D3.
Well,
Miss,
that should have been done yesterday, and we shouldn't be dealing with that now.
I was led to believe it had been done, Chair, and I do apologize. Advocate Mulefe will separate the two files into D1, D2, D6A and D6B
Well,
for her
you take
convenience.
responsibility when other people don't do what I've asked you to do and you have asked them to do.
I accept the responsibility, Chair, and I apologize.
Let's go on with other issues while that is being sorted out, but I'm not happy about this. This should have been done yesterday. We
I-
shouldn't be dealing with this.
I note, Chair, and please accept our apologies. Chair, yesterday we had discussed the response from British Airways, and I had undertaken to provide a copy of the response, and it is now at hand. I beg leave to hand in that response from British Airways.
What response is that?
From British Airways regarding Ms. Mentor's travel in the period June 2010 to December 2010 with the airline
Oh, okay.
to Cape Town, the Cape Town-Johannesburg flight.
Yes.
Yes, Chair.
Okay.
I beg leave to hand it in. It is already paginated. D62 currently goes up to 616.
Yeah.
So this would become D617 with your leave, Chair.
There is D6A and D6B. Now you talk about D61 and D6.
I keep making that mistake with reference,
Two.
Chair, if I may start again.
Yeah,
It's D6A and D6B.
yes,
D6B currently goes up to 616, page 616.
yes.
The letter from British Airways I am handing in, Chair, we have paginated as 617, so it continues with D6B.
Yeah, okay.
With your leave, Chair, if I may.
Thank you.
I have a copy for the Chair and a copy for Ms. Mento.
Yes.
It's not a very short letter because it explains a number of issues. But Chair, I submit that the key thing about this letter is paragraph 2 thereof,
Yes.
which reads, notwithstanding a great deal of effort being made to locate records going back to 2010, we regret to advise you that our Business Intelligence Department has been unable to locate any travel records for Ms. Mentor over the stated period. And if the Chair would have regard to the preceding paragraph, the stated period is July to November 2010.
Yes.
Do you see that, Ms. Mentor?
yes, ma'am, you were you are at the paragraph, the second one from the bottom,
No, the second one from the top.
okay?
That starts with notwithstanding a great deal of effort.
Yes,
And that paragraph states that the airline's business intelligence department was unable to locate any travel records for you over the stated period.
Yes,
And the
ma'am.
stated period being July to November 2010.
yes, ma'am.
So as things stand then, Chair, this is the response from British Airways. On file in D6B is a response from Mango Airlines. So the only airline we are left with now is SAA itself.
Yeah, well, she had made it clear herself yesterday that as far as Mango is concerned, she had never traveled Mango until last year.
Yes.
But I guess this was necessary just to put that issue to bed.
Indeed, Chair.
Yeah, okay.
So when we then proceed,
Just
Okay, before that, Ms. Mentor, do you want to say something?
Yes, Chair. I accept being shown paragraph 2 that begins with notwithstanding.
yes,
I would like also to highlight the last but one paragraph of that letter
yes,
Yes.
to the record and to the chair, which reads as this: as in the circumstances, we think it highly likely that if Ms. Mento was a serving parliamentarian or government official during 2010, her flight bookings would have been made on the services of South African Ways and not on ComAir. I bring that to the chair's attention because we have not been, it was not a prohibition that you may not fly another airline. And often when you have missed a South African airline, you would be placed on any other airline that is available. And sometimes it would be a British Airways airline or any other airline that's available.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Actually, I think that last sentence that you have just read probably doesn't mean what it says. It probably means the opposite, because maybe it's the use of too many negatives. I think what they were trying to say is, if you were an MP, you are likely to have traveled SAA and not ComAir. But the way they are formulated, it is problematic. But I think that's the idea, and that's what you are responding to. Thank you. Ms.
Thank you.
Silo?
Thank you, Chair. Following on the issue Ms. Mentor just raised about the Home Affairs records, the Chair will recall that yesterday we tendered what we called what we intended to call a confidential bundle containing all records received from Home Affairs in respect of the 6 people for which a request was made. And the Chair was hesitant whether it is necessary to increase the amount of paper to include records that are not relevant to the particular witness. We have considered the matter overnight, Chair, and we propose that in light of the fact that Ms. Mento specifically queries Mr. Atul Gupta's passports, that the Chair reconsider and permit us to file a confidential bundle, but this time containing only Mr. Atul Gupta's records.
That's in order. That's okay.
Thank you, Chair.
Yeah.
The record may I request then we give the confidential bundle a number? We are currently at D6.
Before we do that, this letter from ComAir, I understood you to say it's to be added in D6B at the end.
D6B.
But you have given it the page number 617, but my D6B goes up goes up to, no, I'm sorry. This is, exhibit. The A and B we had yesterday starts with D, is that right?
It's D, yes, Chair.
Okay, I think I didn't put D here. But the last page that I have here is 546.
And that would be the Mango
Yes,
correspondence.
yes.
That is followed thereafter, Chair, you will recall, by Ms. Mento's supplementary affidavit,
Yes.
which runs from 547 to 616.
Yeah, during breaks, when we add like this, during breaks, will you just make arrangements for my file
To be updated.
to be updated, because it has not been updated, and that's why I'm wondering why there is some discrepancy with the pagination.
I will definitely do that, Chair.
Okay, all right, yes.
It is now that the numbering for the confidential bundle, we propose it be numbered D6C.
Why is the information relating to other people not confidential, but this one is confidential?
Chair, the confidential bundle that we propose today contains only Mr. Atul Gupta's records from Home Affairs. Yesterday, when the suggestion was made, it contained everybody's records, the 6 people whose records we requested, and the chair was inquired whether it was necessary to have all that detail.
Yeah, but my question now is about confidentiality, not about the necessity.
The confidentiality is borne out by the fact that those records, if the chair will recall, if I may take a step back, in D6A, we provided 1 page of Mr. Atul's records received from Home Affairs, and that is a period that includes August 2010, which is the period of travel. Home Affairs gave us way beyond what we had requested, and that was not provided. Ms. Mento made the point in her affidavit, supplementary affidavit, which we dealt with yesterday, and she's reiterated the point now, that Mr. Atul Gupta is known to have had more than 1 passport. And I indicated, Chair, that if one has regard to the full records provided by Home Affairs, all 4 passports appear on that record at different times. But only 1 was used in the period under consideration, which would be July to end August 2010.
And the confidentiality arises from information that we didn't ask for from Home Affairs, which they have provided, but which you say is useful.
Indeed, Chair, 1, and secondly, the remainder of the record concerns a period or periods that bear no relevance to Ms. Mento's evidence, but in light of the fact...
I assume Ms. Mento has been shown that?
No, she hasn't been shown the confidential records, and that is what
Yes.
she's requesting be made available to her.
Yes, well, if she has put up a version and challenges that, how can I see something that she's not going to be able to see?
Chair,
How do I make a finding that I'm rejecting her version on the basis of something I have seen which she hasn't seen?
If the chair will recall, in Ms. Mentor's affidavit, the point, as she makes it, is she suggests that Mr. Gupta could have traveled in that period, in August 2010, using another passport number, because it has been established that he had more than 1 passport. That's her allegation. And our response is, in the period including August 2010, according to Home Affairs, he traveled using only one. We then point out that from the records that we have received, which go beyond August 2010, we have been able to locate the various other passport numbers owned by Mr. Gupta, Mr. Atul Gupta. However, they are in pages that have not been disclosed in annexed bundle D6A because they are irrelevant for August 2010. And those are the records that we deemed confidential and irrelevant. Now, in light of Ms. Mentor's request, we are proposing, and we tender those records. We submit that insofar as to the question whether or not Mr. Atul Gupta traveled in August 2010, they are irrelevant, which was the purpose for which they were sought. But to satisfy Ms. Mentor that we have records of all Mr. Atul Gupta's passports over a period, I think, spanning about 7 or 8 years, to provide that. Having said that, however, Chair, and for that purpose, we would grant Ms. Mentor access thereto. Having said that, however, Chair, we submit that they are confidential by nature and that they should not form part of the record that is uploaded onto the website. The Chair will have a copy, Ms. Mentor will have a copy, but they shall be treated confidential at all times.
Well, I think maybe it might be necessary for more thought to go into how that should be handled.
Chair,
It may be that more thought should go into how that confidential part should be handled.
Yes, Chair.
I am not sure at this stage that it's clear how the legal team wants it to be handled. Now, why is it not possible to block out information that may be confidential, but still be able to show what passport Mr. Atul Gupta used when, and when there was no use of any passport? Is that not easy to do? And then we can deal with information that's not confidential.
That is an option, Chair, but I may just add that on any single page, 95% will have to be elided and show only an entry giving a passport number. The confidentiality arises from the fact that these are Mr. Atul Gupta's movements in and out of the country. And we departed from the premise that every citizen is entitled to free movement without the public having the right to know where and when it is they went and where they went, unless it is absolutely relevant to an issue that, for instance, is before you, Chair. So that is the basis on which we were proposing that they be treated confidentially. But it's a number of pages. It is possible to obliterate everything else and just leave the passport numbers.
If it is possible to obliterate everything that's irrelevant and leave information that reveals that he left the country on such and such a date, maybe returned on such and such a date, using that particular passport on that occasion, and that during a certain period there was no traveling outside of the country, and so on and so on. If it's possible to do that, I don't see why that should not be enough.
It is possible.
If that can be done, then it seems to me there is nothing really that is sensitive.
It is possible, Chair, and we will do that. Having then removed everything else and just retained the specifics as the Chair points out, the need for a confidential bundle falls away.
Yeah.
And we propose that we update bundle 6DA,
Yeah.
Mr. Atul Gupta's records, and we shall
Yeah.
do that update, Chair.
Okay, all right.
Thank you.
Ms. Mentor?
Thank you, Chair. I sincerely appreciate that the Chair has gone to lengths to talk about the issues of confidentiality of people's records and the issue of people, the need to treat people equally if their matters are to be treated confidentially. Firstly, before I go into the confidentiality, I would like to submit that Mr. Ajay Gupta might have had a valid Indian passport. At that time, I would like the team to look into that. Coming back to the issues of confidentiality, if I may, Chair, the records I received of Major General Viri.
Of who?
Major General Viri bears his ID number. So the confidentiality about his records has not been taken great care of as the confidentiality of the records of Mr. Ajay Gupta. Yesterday, I raised the issue with Ms. Sillo about my telephone records. That on Friday, we were handed a record of my telephone conversations pertaining to all my Vodacom numbers I have and I've had. And the telephone records go up to telephone calls I made like 10 days ago. And I asked Ms. Sillo, I think the issue of my conversation on my telephone, it's a confidential issue and private matter that has got nothing to do with the commission. And I don't know why the commission would go and seek telephonic conversations, my telephone records that are up to as recent as 10 days ago. So I would like to appreciate the fact that you are underscoring that if people's confidentiality and their records and their privacy is to be respected, they must be treated equally before the commission and before the law. There should not be overemphasis on protecting the confidentiality of records of certain people when records of certain people like Major General Viri's ID number and my telephonic records are not carefully protected.
No, thank you for that. The legal team must be sensitive to these things, and you have had Ms. Mentor's concern. Those things must be looked at to make sure that we don't we don't expose to the hearing and the public personal information that is really of no significance. Obviously, there could well be situations where it is significant, and then everybody must apply their mind to what should be done. And it's important that those who participate in the work of the commission, including witnesses, Ms. Mentor, that you remain alert, so that if there is something that you are unhappy about, you bring it to the attention of the legal team and whoever, including me at the hearings, so that those can be attended to and everybody can apply their minds to it, because sometimes it might not be intentional. Sometimes the focus might be on other things and then other information creeps in. Okay? Thank
Chair,
you.
with your permission, I would like to
Yes.
deal with those issues.
Yes.
And I first would like to address myself to the question of ID numbers in statements. All the statements that we receive, the authors indicate their ID numbers and their usually residential addresses. These are blacked out at the time that the document is made public, and precisely for the same reasons that the chair advances. We try to limit tampering with a witness's bundle as much as possible. That bundle must look exactly as the chair's bundle. But that's not the bundle that's
Yes.
going on the web.
Yes.
So the fact that she can see Captain Viri's ID number does not mean that we are insensitive to Captain Viri's personal information. So I would like to correct that for the record, one. Secondly, as regards telephone records, we have in bundle D6 records from MTN. On none of those pages do Ms. Mento's telephone calls and SMSs appear. And I can invite her to verify that at this very moment. Ms. Mento was given everything. They are her telephone records. Now, if we are going to withhold her telephone records from her on the basis that they are confidential, I don't know where we are headed with this chair. So yes, they were given to her, but I can assure you they are not in this bundle.
They are not given to
Anybody else. It is
yeah.
only to her because they are her records.
Yeah. No, I think that it's important to have conversations, because she might have thought that if they are in her bundle, they are in everybody's bundle, and that they might end up in the public domain. Ms. Mentor?
Chair, I think Ms. Silo misunderstands the part of my cell phone records, the complaint about my records. My question to her yesterday and my concern today is, why would the commission access my telephone conversations that are as recent as 10 days ago?
Oh, yes.
That's my point.
Yes, so your point is not just about the public.
Yes.
It's also about the commission,
commission
itself.
accessing
Why
my-
should it know your...
Yes,
yes,
my
yes,
private conversations
yes,
as they happened about
yes,
10 days ago.
Yes, no.
And if I may answer to that, Chair, Ms. Mento did raise the concern with me, and I responded, and I repeat my response here before you today. As the Chair has noticed, there's always a period. When we prepare our request for information, there's always a period for which we require information. A case in point is the very letter of British Airways that we have dealt with. In their request for information, the period was July to November 2010. And we try to limit that. We're not exact to accommodate margin of error. So we always add like a month before a date we are looking for, and perhaps add a month or two after. And this is to obviate the need to go back in case a witness comes back and say, no, I had my date wrong. The date I actually had in mind was later within a 6-month period. So we basically work on a 6-month period. And similar requests are made to cell phone providers. What they tend to do is to submit thousands of pages. It's like they download the information from somewhere and they dump it with us. It's not like we requested records up to Ms. Mento's records, let's say up to 2018. We had a specific period, but they tend to give us what they give us. It becomes very difficult for us, having been given records, to then decide which bit we are withholding from a witness and which bit we are giving. We have approached the issue on the basis that what we get relevant to the witness is what the witness gets. And that will include irrelevant information we had not asked for. But the moment it's given to us, in its totality, it is forwarded to the witness.
So from that explanation, it seems that the problem may have been with the cell phone companies giving information beyond what was asked for in terms of the periods. If that's the information, and they shouldn't actually they should not give anybody, they shouldn't give information that hasn't been asked for. So that it may be that's where the problem is. But I would encourage conversations between the legal team and Ms. Mento and any witness in regard to such things so that they can be sorted out. But what comes out from your explanation, from Ms. Silo's explanation, Ms. Mento, is that they didn't ask for cell phone records or conversations in regard to 2018. Yes, you want to say something?
I would like to correct Ms. Silo, Chair.
Yes.
The issue about the cell phone records were about the piece of evidence which I gave when we were interacting, that I was at the IPIT offices in Belleville in 2016 November. And I said to the illegal team, I spoke telephonically to Mr. Robert McBride. And I can verify that there have been a conversation between myself and him, because I was not happy with the response that came from IPIT, because it was not from Mr. Robert McBride. So I said to Ms. Sillo, you can get the records, my telephone records, for November 2016, where I communicated with Mr. Robert McBride. So the period was to be confined to November 2016. It was not even 2018. But then when the record comes, it comes, is not, if you give a vague brief, you will get records like Ms. Sillo got in terms of my telephone conversations.
Yes, but Ms. Mentor, do you know that a vague brief was given?
No, I don't know. I'm saying, I'm concerned that whereas I said to Ms. Sillo, get my telephone records for November 2016, they will prove to you that I communicated with Mr. McBride when I was at the IPIT. What comes for me is all and sundry of my personal conversations with everybody, including until 10 days ago.
Yes, but Ms. Mentor, Ms. Silo has given the explanation. And her explanation is they didn't ask for all the information that they have been given. They asked for information that they needed with some provision for about a month before and a month after, just in case there is an error. And if it was in relation to 2016, a conversation 2016, they couldn't have asked for conversations in 2018. She says the cell phone companies, in this case, just provided them with much more than they asked for. And they felt that because you are the owner, they could pass the same thing on to you, but there was no intention to give it to anybody, and they had not asked for it themselves. That's what the explanation
I
is.
accept that, Chair.
Yes.
I'm very strong on this point because previously things have leaked from the Commission.
No, that's fine. I think we need to make progress. If there are still any other concerns, raise them with the legal team, and if they can't be resolved, then they can be brought to my attention. But I think that I now know how it came about that you received records of cell phone conversations that had nothing to do with anything that we wanted. But you can talk to the legal team if there are still further concerns. She has indicated that the Commission will not give that information to the public. It was not wanted by the Commission. It's just the cell phone company that provided it. You can indicate to her if there is any way in which you want that issue to be dealt with, those records, whether there is any way, or in the future, if there is a similar request that needs to be made to these companies, if there is anything you want to say, look, if they come, what should happen? Should they give you? Should they not give you? Because I guess for the future, all they can do is emphasize when they make the request that all we need is records for the following period and nothing more. You know. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, during lunch, perhaps we will take up the conversation with Ms. Mentor
Yes,
and reach agreement on how to deal with the concerns that she
Yeah.
has raised.
Yeah,
And Chair, we accept your direction going forward. We will,
okay, okay.
the legal team will consider how to deal with these matters as they receive responses.
Yes, okay.
Before I leave the issue of bundles, Chair, the issue came up yesterday, and I'm not sure if I clarified. So for avoidance of any doubt going forward, I deem it necessary to clarify. The Chair will recall before we broke for lunch, I had given Ms. Mento a mock-up of Emirates manifest on the 22nd of August on the flight from Johannesburg to Dubai, 2010, and I had asked her to indicate where the chairman was sitting relative to her own seat, as she had wanted. The manifest was requested at the instance of Ms. Mento. When we returned, Ms. Mento indicated, and I placed on record, that she no longer pursues that point. My interest now is just to place on record that I withdraw completely the flight manifest received from Emirates because, again, question of confidentiality. It contains names of people who traveled on that flight and who have nothing to do with this commission.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Then turning back to the issue we're discussing, Ms. Mento, if you want to say something.
Before we go on a new issue, ma'am,
Yes, ma'am.
through the chair, it's about the Emirates records of Mr. AJ. I agree completely with Ms. Silo just proposed now.
Yes.
But I just want to say that in relation to information that was put before me yesterday that Mr. AJ Gupta had not flown Emirates for a period of time.
May I correct that, Chair, if I may, just so we are
Yeah.
clear?
Yes.
It is Mr. Atul Gupta who was
It's-
not on the flight, not Mr. Ajay.
Sorry?
It's Atul Gupta who was not on the flight in August, not Ajay. Ajay was in that flight. Just, I'm correcting your name.
Let me just seek clarity from you
Okay.
through the chair. The records of Emirates that you put before me,
Yes, ma'am.
not the one to China, the one that was showing that Mr. Gupta did not move in and out of the country,
Yes, ma'am.
the ones that were related to the Home Affairs records,
Yes.
were they not the records for Mr. Ajay Gupta?
Let me just locate that then for ease of reference. They were, in fact, everybody's records, the five of you. Chair, this is if I may just quickly,
Well, if you are sure, as I think you are, that
I'm trying to understand your
they
question.
related to all the five, is it 5 people?
5 people. Chair.
That should suffice for now.
Yes.
And
Yes.
depending on whether she wants anything else, we might be able to move on.
Oh, yes, Chair.
If
Yes.
I may, Chair, D6, page 279, is that the
No,
document?
I don't want to look at it
Okay.
if it's not necessary. It might not be necessary.
Yes.
You have said to her, it related to her, it related to the other 4 or 5 people that had been mentioned.
Yes, Chair.
Yes.
I just want to say the record of Emirates that was put before me yesterday, that was proving that somebody had not flown for a period of time in and out of South Africa.
So I think what she wants you to remind her is the purpose of the Emirates record. What were they?
Oh.
What was it put up to show?
No, the Emirates record, let me put it this way. The request to Emirates Airlines was to indicate who of the 6 people listed traveled on the flight from Johannesburg to Dubai and Dubai to China from the 22nd August 2010. So we provided 6 names.
Yes, and was there somebody that was not reflected out of the 5 or 6 people?
No, there was only one person not reflected in the table provided, and that was Mr. Fana Hlongwane.
Okay.
No, I don't think Ms. Silo understands. Ms. Silo, remember when we dealt with AJ yesterday?
Yes, ma'am.
You were trying to probe whether my version said AJ was present in China
Yes, ma'am.
during the state visit. Now, you put before me Emirates record that showed that he had not flown for a period of time. a period of time that would cover the time of the president visits to China. You tabled that before me together with Home Affairs records as a way to prove that he would not have been in China at this time when I said I spotted him in China during the presidential visit.
With your leave, Chair,
Yeah.
may I beg that we go to page 279, because I
Yeah.
think we will move faster through
Okay.
this issue.
Yes.
It's D61, Ms. Mento.
D6A.
D6A, I
Please
apologize.
stop the
D6A.
one because it will
It's
cause
confusing.
confusion.
It's
Yeah.
confusing, Chair. D6A, it starts at 278.
278.
And that is the response from Emirates Airlines.
278.
And at 279 is a table showing who of the 6 people traveled on Emirates Airlines and when in the period under consideration. Yet again, the request was limited to July or August 2010 to November 2010. You located.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, 279 shows that in that period, Mr. Hlongwane did not travel on Emirates at all.
Yes,
Only those 5 people listed, including yourself.
yes.
When one looks against the name of each one of them, except Mr. Atul Gupta, we can locate the flight of the 22nd of August 2010. Only Mr. Atul Gupta was not on that flight. So that's what that document tells us. You accept that?
Yes.
Okay. Now, having given you that background, can I understand what your question is?
I
No,
think
I might-
she is concerned with Ajay Gupta.
Yes.
I think it may be the Home Affairs records,
Oh,
if I'm not mistaken,
yes, Chair.
where the records deal with when he was in and out of the country during the relevant period. I think is that what you're talking about?
Yes, Chair.
Yeah, and what do you want to be reminded of?
Yes, Chair. I wanted to know if this record is related to Ajay Gupta, because I wanted to put it to you, Ms., that Ajay Gupta or Atul Gupta at any given time around that period of July to September 2010 could have traveled on any other airline other than Emirates.
Yeah, but he would have had to leave the country, and the Home Affairs records deal with that. I know that you have raised issues about the Home Affairs records, but they would, whatever airline he used, the Home Affairs records should reflect, isn't it?
Yes, Chair.
Yeah.
And
So the main
hence,
question becomes the Home Affairs records
yes, Chair.
and maybe another airline, but that seems to be critical.
Yes, the Home Affairs records become critical whether there is a possibility that he can come in and out of the country without being picked up, or the Home Affairs records not being accurately reflecting. Hence the issue I raised earlier on of the parliamentary inquiry into Home Affairs.
Yes. Okay, I think you will be calling a Home Affairs witness.
Yes, Chair.
You will be calling SAA witness. You will be calling somebody from Parliament, as I understand it, to cover those records. And it seems to me that out of those, we should have an idea. Is that all right, Ms.
Thanks,
Minto?
Chair.
Yeah.
I confirm so. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, all right.
When we parted Ms. Mento yesterday, we were discussing the issue of the inspection in local, you recall.
Yes, ma'am.
And they put up on the screen the Google Earth picture of properties 1357 Saxonwell Drive,
Yes, ma'am.
and an issue arose whether or not you had taken issue with whether or not on the day of your visit, there was a boundary wall between 5 and 3, between number 5 and number 3. Do you recall that discussion? And the chair suggested that perhaps we show a clip of that. Your response was that you had taken issue with boundary between 5 and 7, but not 5 and 3. And I undertook to find the clips where you raised the issue about the boundary wall between 5 and 3.
I've also gone to do homework about those walls, Chair.
Yes.
What I found is that I did emphasize that the wall between 5 and 7 should be checked, and the report of the experts also speak about that in the report. And then my homework suggests that I may also have referred to the wall between 5 and 3. But yesterday I had an impression that Ms. Silo is emphatically saying that I never had an issue between the wall between house number 5 and 7. And the report of the experts refers to that request that I made during the in-locus inspection as well.
Oh, yes, I think there seemed to be uncertainty on whether the wall about which you had raised an issue was the same wall that the experts looked at. Ms. Silo made it clear that her understanding was that it was the same wall, but I think she was leaving room that you might not be thinking they have looked at the wall about which you had raised an issue. Ms. Silo, is my recollection correct on that? Or
In part, Chair.
in part, yeah.
But I think the issue is resolved by Ms. Mento's response.
Yes,
She refers to the homework she did last night.
yes.
So if I may just pose a
Yeah,
question to
do
Chair to
that,
test.
yeah.
So if we are in agreement, then the showing of the clip will be unnecessary. You accept, Ms. Mento, that during the inspection you raised both the existence or the positioning of the wall between 5 and 3 and 5 and 7. So
Yes,
it's
from
two
my
walls boundary walls that the experts must proceed, but subject to what the chair says. I hope so, Chair.
I need us to move fast. So I don't know how much time you will need to ask questions so that thereafter cross-examination can start.
Chair, I have two issues. No, in fact, one subject now left. Now that we're no longer showing the clips,
Yeah,
only one subject left.
yeah.
And it just involves Mr. Bloom, Ms. Mashile Nkosi, and Ms. Mgabadeli.
Okay, no, that's fine. We'll take the short adjournment. We'll resume at 11:30. Okay, Ms. Silva,
Thank you, Chair. Chair,
let's get going.
during tea break, Ms. Mento's legal representatives brought something to my attention which I request to place on record.
Yeah,
And to confirm, Chair, that on our research, we did establish that in the period August to October, or to September 2010, or October 2010, there was a strike by COSATU. The question was, the issue was to try and establish the date on which the president was having a meeting with COSATU.
yes,
Ms. Mento's legal advisors have been able to locate the Secretariat report of COSATU of 2011.
yes,
And in that report, if I may read, Chair, I will hand up copies.
yes,
At page 20 thereof, it states, and I read, on the 13th September 2010, we held a meeting with the ANC NOBs. All of them were present.
yes.
I'm led to understand that the NOBs is the top section
National office bearers, I think it should
of,
be.
yes, it is, Chair. And they would like me to bring to the attention of the Chair that particular entry.
Yes, that's fine.
And
Do we know whether the 13th was a Monday?
it was a Monday, Chair.
It was a Monday
It was a Monday,
Okay.
and currently we don't have Ms. Mentor traveling to Johannesburg on the
On that
13th of
Monday.
September. Yes, Chair.
Yes.
But it is definitely a Monday.
a Monday.
Yes, Chair.
Okay. Is there anything, Ms. Mentor, you want to say in regard to this information that has just been brought to my attention?
Nothing there, except to add that in the second paragraph of that same document, it is highlighted that the president had to step out for another meeting, which confirms that the president was in that meeting and that later on he left to step out to another meeting. I'm not saying that necessarily that was a
Yes.
meeting with
Yeah,
me, but I
no,
would
no.
like to highlight
Yeah,
that.
no, I think that's fair enough, yeah. Okay, you will apply your mind as to whether there's anything further to do in regard to the issue of that Monday and the COSATU strike and the meeting between the COSATU national office bearers and the ANC national office bearers. But you wanted to put up is it a report or what?
It's an excerpt of that report, Chair.
Sorry?
An excerpt of that report.
Yes. Well,
Chair.
don't you want to try and get, is there a full report that is in the public domain?
We may
Because-
be able to
Yeah,
locate it.
maybe
I
try,
think
yeah.
what happened is they extracted that which was relevant for our purposes.
Yes, no, that's fine.
But I think, Chair, most importantly, the fact has been placed on record,
Yes,
and we will then endeavor to obtain the full report.
yes. What may be necessary is just for somebody to say this is indeed an excerpt from a report that exists. We might not need to have the whole report, but just to confirm that it is an excerpt from that report.
We will revert to
Yeah.
you, Chair, once we have obtained the report ourselves.
Yes, okay, all right, thanks.
Sorry, Chair.
Yes,
In addition to the report, myself and my legal team, we will also try to assist the legal
yes,
team of the commission
yes,
by, we will assist, not today,
yes,
with information that would show
yes,
that all the three Guptas on that particular Monday
Yes.
were all of them in the country as well.
yes, yes. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. And for the record, that information can be gleaned from the reports that you already have as to the whereabouts
The
of
Home Affairs,
all the
records.
documents we have as to the
Yes.
whereabouts of the three Guptas,
yeah,
gentlemen or brothers, the president,
Yes.
with reference to his diary.
yes,
And all that shall be readdressed once we have had a full consultation with the SAA,
Yeah.
because the records that we currently have do not show Ms. Mentor as having traveled to Johannesburg on the 13th. Yes, Chair.
There is, I seem to remember that in respect of either Ms. Mentor's evidence about her encounter with one or more, now I can't remember, one or more of the Gupta brothers at Saxon World and her encounter with the former president, either in regard to that or in regard to Mr. Jonas's evidence of his encounter with one or more of the Gupta brothers at Saxon World. I seem to remember that Mr. Ajay Gupta, in his affidavit in support of his application for leave to cross-examine, may have said, either in that or in that affidavit read with the interview of the public protector, I can't remember, he may have said that he was out of the country at the time it is alleged that he was part of a meeting either with Ms. Mento or with Mr. Jonas, or it might have said he was at the certain offices of their companies. That might have just to be looked at, or it may be that either Mr. Jonas or Mr. Jonas's attorney in his interview with the public protector in terms of the transcript may have said that Mr. Ajay Gupta had given a version to the effect that he was out of the country at the time it was alleged it was Mr. Jonas had met with him. I'm just raising that because I can't remember whether it's in relation to Ms. Mentor's evidence or in relation to Mr. Jonas's evidence, and to the extent that it may relate to Ms. Mentor. If he said he was out of the country, then it's important to check whether the Home Affairs records agree with that.
Chair, if I may shed light on that, on the documents that we have, including Mr. Ajay Gupta's affidavit, nowhere does he allege that at the time he's supposed to have had a meeting with Ms. Mentor, he either was out of the country or was at the office. To the best of my recollection, those facts relate to Mr. Jonas's testimony.
Okay.
Yes.
And we will bring that to the attention of the evidence leader dealing with Mr. Jonas,
Yeah, okay.
and they shall deal with it at that point.
No, that's fine.
Thank you,
That's
Chair.
fine. Thank you. Okay, let's get going.
Thank you, Chair. Ms. Mentor, now that we're no longer watching the videos, we should move very quickly. What is left is very little for us. I would like you to refer to bundle D6B. And in D6B, I would like you to turn to page 453. And you should have at 453 the start of a document called National Assembly Composite Parliamentary Program 2010. Do you
Yes,
confirm?
ma'am.
Okay.
Yes.
That's Exhibit D,
D6B,
D6B. Thank you.
page
And what's the page?
435.
435.
435, Chair.
Thank you. Yes.
And Ms. Mentor, just to help us understand what appears at 436, and in particular the following, I note that
Sorry, you said 436?
it starts at 435, and I would like you to have particular regard to 436 overleaf.
Yes, I'm at 436.
Okay, that reflects the 3 terms of parliament, first, second, and third, and I see throughout there's an entry constituency period. Is that the recess period? Should the chair understand that to mean the recess period?
Well, just lead me to the where it says constituency.
Okay, let's take the first term, January to March. The last entry in that block reads constituency period 29 March to 9 April. and it says that's the constituency period. So my question to you is, should we understand constituency period to mean recess?
Okay, I'm also still trying to find where you are at page
I-
436.
At 436, there are 4 blocks, Chair,
Yes.
headed first term, second, third, and fourth term,
Yeah.
respectively. The first top left block is first term,
Yes,
and it starts with the entry leave period.
and then
at
constituency
the-
period,
Yes,
11 to 22 January.
11 to 22.
I thought you said March, so that is what was
No,
confusing.
I was looking at the last one, Chair. There's
Oh,
another
okay.
entry.
Okay, all right.
So whether it is the one of the 11th to the 22nd January or the bottom of that block, 29 March to 9 April, also the constituency period. What I needed to establish from Ms. Mentor, based on her experience as a parliamentarian, is whether constituency period is the recess period or is recess period something else.
In other words, what's the constituency period in Parliament?
A constituency period in Parliament means the time during which you are predominantly expected as Member of Parliament to do work within your constituency. But it does not prohibit you from time to time going to the precinct of Parliament. Sometimes committees are also called during that period. So constituency recess sometimes means where there is no Parliament work at all. Like for
Yes.
instance, we would have a December recess period,
Yeah,
or we would have a June recess period. Recess tends to often coincide with School holidays.
Okay,
Yes, so there is a similarity and a difference between constituency and period and recess period.
Thank you, Ms. Mentor. I asked that question to try, again, locate when it is you came to Johannesburg, and in light of what Mr. Bloom says, and we will get to that. Just for your own purposes, you stated that you traveled in August to China during recess, and you state that in your statement at paragraph 29. I don't know if you want to.
well, if there's nothing important to
page
look
10.
at, you can just mention
I
what the
mentioned it
period
to her. I
is,
don't
yeah.
know if she wants to satisfy herself.
Chair, I did say that, as I say, sometimes you can use recess interchangeable constituency. I said that in August month, every year, Parliament does kind of a rises for purposes of Women's Month.
Yes,
So I have submitted in my my evidence to the Commission and to the Public Protector that in August that month we had adjourned for Women's Month, and therefore Parliament was not in sitting.
okay.
Thank you, Ms. Mentor. If one then goes forward, what we did was, you recall that your testimony was your first disclosure about the offer made to you by the Guptas was in 2010 to members of the Portfolio Committee on Intelligence.
Yes, ma'am.
We then requested Parliament to provide us with a program for Parliament and to locate all the Portfolio Committee meetings. We also requested the minutes of those meetings, and Chair, at this juncture, I must place on record that we have been granted access to them, but they were not provided with the documents that we received. And the explanation for that was that by their very nature, those minutes are secret. They are not permitted to leave Parliament. And we have instead been requested to somebody to go down to Parliament, peruse the minutes, make whatever notes they wish, and present whatever they need to you. So we do not have them physically. We have not executed that visit to Parliament because further Parliament required of us to narrow the ambit of our request. Clearly, they are not particularly interested in granting us access to all secret minutes. And the purpose of my conversation with Ms. Mento today is to try and see if we can narrow down that period.
My recollection, and I had a look at parts of her statement before the commission early this morning, is that either in the statement or in the evidence last year before me, she said that she raised the issue with specific members of that committee informally, in which case I assume the minutes would not reflect anything informal. Ms. Mento, is my recollection of what you said correct?
Chair, I did say that I raised the issue in the foyer before the meeting unofficially, and that subsequent to that, some opposition members also took up the matter. I have also, in my discussions with Ms. Sillo.
Just before that, when you say opposition members, you mean opposition members serving in that committee?
Thanks for correcting me, Chair.
Uh-huh.
I raised the issue informally, and that
Yes.
subsequently members of the committee,
Yes.
one or two of them, also
Yes.
raised the issue. But when I raised it in my statement, I
Yes.
said that it was informal, it was not in a
Oh.
meeting setting.
Yes, but what you mean is some members of the committee raised the issue formally at a meeting.
Yes, but the meeting was, I also further said in the statement, they proposed the issue to be discussed,
Yes.
but the chairperson of the committee
Yes.
did not table the issue for discussion.
Yes.
So it did not end up being discussed because the
Yes.
chairperson
Yes.
proposed another way
Of
dealing
dealing
with
it.
the issue.
Yes. So, and did you say whether you subsequently saw whether whatever was said at the meeting in regard to the issue was reflected in minutes of that day? Or is it something you have no recollection of?
I did say that, I don't know if I said that in the evidence or if I said that in consultation with the legal team. I said that because it was not discussed
Yes.
officially as part of the
Yes.
agenda,
Yes.
because it was a proposal,
Yes.
I wouldn't know if it would have ended in the minutes or not, but
Yeah.
I doubt it would.
Yes, okay, so you don't expect the minutes to include it, but maybe they do, but you don't
That's what
expect, yeah?
yes, Chair.
Okay, all right.
And Chair, if I may, it is especially because of that issue that the Chair has just alluded to, that we requested access to the minutes to definitively answer the question whether or not the minutes do so reflect. What follows, Ms. Mento, from page 484, I don't know to call them programs, they call them programs of Parliament, and this regarding the various meetings of committees. The first starts at 484, and it's for the period 10 August 2010 to the 22nd September 2010. And that would run until from 484 to 503. We find a portfolio committee. No, we don't find a portfolio committee on intelligence in that period. So I want to find out from you whether if we propose to exclude the period 10 August to 22nd September as a period in which you would have made the disclosure, would you accept that? Because we need to be on a day that the portfolio committee was sitting.
I don't understand what you want me to do, Mr. Lo.
I think what she is saying, Ms. Mento, is that the is that the National Assembly or Parliament has provided the Commission with documents which reflects meetings that took place of committees of Parliament over a certain period, and she will tell you what the period is. I think she says up to sometime in September, from August 10, 2010 to sometime in September. She says there appears to be no meeting of the Portfolio Committee on Intelligence that took place during that period. That's what she wants you to confirm whether you are happy that we exclude that period covered by those documents as the period when the meeting might have happened where you made the disclosure informally that you have told us about.
Before the witness answers, may I qualify my question?
Yes.
Because we received a range of documents from Parliament. There's another
Yes.
document that covers, I'd say it covers an overlap period. So the first document would suggest that between 10 August and 22nd September, the Portfolio Committee did not have a meeting. The second document—
The Portfolio Committee on Intelligence.
On intelligence, Chair. The second document starts on page 504. That is for the period 7 September 2010 to 22nd September 2010, and that's where the overlap occurs.
Yes.
And that document would suggest that there were, in fact, two
Yes.
Portfolio Committee meetings in September.
Two meetings of the Portfolio Committee on Intelligence.
The
Okay.
first appearing at page 506 at the top, and the second at page 509 on the 15th of September. Now, my question to her, the documents don't seem to be consistent. I wanted to find out whether she would accept, as the document would suggest, that the Portfolio Committee did not sit at all between, the Portfolio Committee on Intelligence did not sit at all between 10th of August and the 22nd of September.
Chair, it's difficult for me to say anything. Firstly,
Yes.
I've not thoroughly studied these things, but
Yes.
for me, they are immaterial for now.
Yeah. Maybe let's do this. Don't forget what you wanted to say.
Yes.
Okay. There might be confusion in my mind again whether you have mentioned different times as to when it is likely you had, when you had this encounter with at Saxon Weld with Mr. Ajay Gupta. But I do recall that either in your evidence or in your statement that you submitted last year, that there is a reference to, there is a suggestion that that meeting, that encounter happened about a week before Minister Barbara Hogan was dismissed as a member of Parliament. And from what I recall, she was dismissed at the end of October 2010. So if I'm correct that there is a suggestion in your evidence that your encounter at Saxon Weld was about a week or so before her dismissal, then it would put your encounter at Saxon Weld around about 20-something in maybe around 25 or thereabout of October 2010. Am I correct that there is that suggestion in your evidence? I'm not saying it's the only one.
You are correct, Chair. That was the initial. That is what I had initially said.
Yes.
But then, still in my evidence, and that's
Yes.
reflected in the transcript.
Yes.
When I recalled that I had said to the President, apologies for refusing to see you
Yes.
2 weeks ago in China.
Yes.
Then in the transcript, I said that that first account of roughly when it could have been,
Yes.
that it could have been a week before the reshuffling of Barbara Hogan. Then I considered and corrected myself that the timeline was not necessarily correct.
Yes, yes. And then did you put another time as to when it was likely to have been?
I did not give an exact date
Yes,
of
yeah.
the encounter, Chair.
Yeah, that
but
much I remember, yeah, that you didn't
Yes.
put a date, but where you did you say whether it definitely was in October, even though it might not have been a week before the dismissal, or could it be September, could it be August?
I said it could have been September, Chair, because I moved away from October.
Yes.
Because I said that the 2 weeks after China does not put me in October. If I say
Yes.
to the president, forgive me for refusing, I said, that puts me in September. And for
Yes.
that reason, in my transcript, I moved away completely from October.
Yes. The China visit, again, was it in July or August?
End of August, Chair.
End of August.
Towards the end of August.
Yes.
Towards.
So as you sit here, you would say, whatever the date is, it must have been in September? Or
Yes.
would you still say, maybe it was in October? Or are you able to exclude or not to exclude? And you don't need to exclude if you are not sure. I just want to have an idea in your own mind whether you feel that September definitely is the month when it happened, or you say it could be September, it could be October.
You mean the incident of Saxon Wold, Chair?
Yes, yes, yes.
For now, the incident of Saxon World, for now, resides somewhere in September.
Okay, but with a possibility that it could be October, or you say, no, there's no such possibility.
I wouldn't want to commit to that, Chair.
You wouldn't like to
For now,
exclude, yeah.
having taken all issues into account.
Yes, yes. It could be
that
September.
Yes, my date.
You think it was
it's-
September, but you don't want to exclude October.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, all right. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. For the record, on the 28th of August 2018, it's in the transcript, Ms. Mentor's estimation.
You like yourself very much, Ms. Silo.
I see the name on the page, sir, and I apologize, Chair. Ms. Mentor indicated that her report to members of the Portfolio Committee, and I call it members, not necessarily in session,
Yes.
and was not the first Wednesday after she had met with the Gupta family, but it was not long after that encounter. And the chairperson inquires from her at page 67 from line 11 for reference purposes. So maybe it could be the following or the week after, and Ms. Mentor's response is yes, but no further than that.
And are we in September, the week thereafter, does that fall within September or October?
No, what was being discussed here is relative to when she met them, when it
Yes.
is she had the conversation with the members of the Portfolio Committee.
Yes.
And her response is that I'm inclined to think that it was not the first Wednesday, that is the first Wednesday
Yes.
following
Yeah.
the encounter,
Yes.
but I know that it was not long after my encounter.
Yes, yes.
The chair then asks, so maybe it could be the following week or the week after,
Yes.
to which Ms. Mentor says yes, but not further than that.
Okay.
So we are looking, if we find the date of the
Yeah.
meeting,
Yeah.
the disclosure would be about 2, maybe
Yeah.
on the out, 3 weeks from the date of that encounter.
Yes, okay, all right. Thank you.
So if it is in September, then, according to the records we received, in September there were 2 Portfolio Committee meetings. At page 506 is the one of Wednesday the 8th
Yes,
and Wednesday the 15th.
okay,
Chair, because I am getting confused,
yes,
I'm going to deal with this issue, if it is okay with the chair and with Ms. Silo, when I conclude my statement. Because the chair is going to put to me questions about my statement, whether I was intending to, what I might do at that time might save us the trouble that we are trying to deal with right now.
Well, if there is anything that can assist clarify, let's not delay it. I don't say make a long statement, but if you are able to say 1 or 2 points or things in a sentence or two that clarifies, do it now.
Yes, Chair, I wouldn't want to deal a lot with portfolio committee meetings and dates because what I would like to deal with what I raised informally.
Yes, no, that's fine. You see, the reason why the legal team and the investigators have gone to the trouble that they have gone to try and verify this is one, the evidence you gave with regard to the encounter at Saxonwold raised very important issues which fall within the work of this commission. And if it was found, and I think I've said this before, it was found that indeed what you say happened did happen, it could have a lot of consequences for certain people, okay? It is therefore quite important that we should get as much information as possible that either corroborates what you say or actually corroborates the opposite. So the commission looks at all angles. And one of the things it was looking here is, okay, you said not long after you had this encounter at Saxonwold, you made a disclosure informally to certain members of the committee. The commission has approached those members of the committee to establish whether they recall the disclosure and what, and Ms. Silo will deal with that, and you may be aware already or you may not be aware, I don't know. But also looking at were there meetings of the portfolio committee around about that time, because if there were no meetings, it might put a question mark on your evidence. But if there were meetings, it might be something in your favor. I mean, and the next thing is other aspects. So the investigators and the legal team, they are looking at all possible things so that in the end, when I make any finding, everything has been done to try and make sure that there is all the material that I can look at to make a proper finding. Okay. Yes, so to you it might not be important, but to the commission it might be important to look at those things. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Now, Ms. Silo, I don't understand if Ms. Silo wants me to. Maybe I'm battling with what she wants me to do with the dates of meetings.
No, well, she wanted you. I mean, if there is information that they have received, which may tend to agree with what you are saying or not to agree, it's only fair that they should mention it to you so that you might say, you might make whatever comment. You might say, I have no comment. You might say, no, but that information can't be correct because of A, B, C, D, which is useful in terms of investigating. I mean, I don't know, for example, there is a document that has been provided which says meetings of committees during a certain period of time. You have been an MP, you might know better to what extent that kind of document would be accurate or not accurate. So the idea is just to give you a chance to say, I have got a comment, or I don't have a comment. I dispute what they are saying. It's not correct. This is the correct thing. That's the idea. And you are free to say no comment if you have no comment.
I wouldn't dispute the records of Parliament as they are put before you, Ms. Silo.
Yes, ma'am.
If the records of Parliament said there was a meeting at that time or there was no meeting at that time.
Okay, ma'am. I take note of that.
Yes.
Thank you for the response. I then would like to refer you, I need you to pull out D1 your statement,
Did you get it right this time?
D1.
Oh, okay. Yeah, your D and 1
D1,
has
the
caused
very
enough
first.
problems.
It is. It's a perennial problem, Chair. I'll hopefully will be able to address before this commission is over. It's a bundle containing her statement.
Yes, okay. Is it necessary to go there?
It is, Chair.
It is?
It is.
Okay.
I submit,
All right.
Chair. Have you located your statement, Ms. Mentor?
I'm locating my statement, the one that I study every day from my handbag, ma'am.
I think you might need to take the actual bundle marked, it's Exhibit D1, so you might have a copy of your statement somewhere else, but I think she's saying it's important to use the same bundle that she's using.
Okay, Chair.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair, indeed. And your statement starts at page 1 of that bundle, but I want to refer you in particular to page 29.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, at paragraph 103, the bottom of page 29, you state the following: I did not go public on the Saxon World incident immediately. The Joint Standing Committee on Intelligence, of which I was a member, met on Wednesdays. Shortly after my encounter with Mr. Zuma and the Guptas at their residence, I did disclose to a few members of the committee what had happened at my recent meeting with Mr. Zuma. There were Hlengiwe Mgabadeli, Dennis Bloom, and Siyabonga Cwele, in brackets, the chair of the committee. They all took an interest in my account. You see that?
Yes, ma'am. Sorry.
Now, what we know is this.
I don't know if you made this amendment, but I made it on mine, which comes after that, which says, I made this disclosure informally to members of the committee who were present as we were having tea before the formal meeting could start.
Yes, Chair. You heard the chair, Ms. Mentor.
Yes.
At the top of page 30, paragraph 103.
Yes, Chair. I'm looking for the addition that Chair just read now.
No,
I'm saying I made it on mine.
Oh,
It might not have been made in your one, but
Yes,
Ms.
Chair.
Silo has got it too, I think. Yeah, so, but there might be no significance about that now.
for purposes of this question,
Yeah.
and what the chair meant was that during the course of your testimony,
Yes.
you added that bit and the chair added it to his
Yes.
statement as I did to mine. But for the moment, I'm interested in the persons that you list there. And in particular, Mr. Siyabonga Cwele, who you say was the chair of the portfolio committee. We have done on our research, and we know that this is in, I'll just say between August and October 2010. I'll put it that broadly. What we have been able to determine in our research is that Mr. Siyabonga Cwele became a minister on the 25th of September 2008, and he was appointed Minister of Intelligence. He held that post until the 10th of May 2009. And after the elections in 2009, till 2014, he was what is listed as the Minister of State Security. My point to you is, if the research is correct, then Mr. Cwele could not have been a portfolio committee chairperson as at August 2010, because by then he was appointed a minister.
yes.
So your paragraph 103 then, suggesting that Mr. Cwele was the chair of the committee at the time you made the disclosure, is incorrect.
Yes, and I was going to correct that later
Okay.
on when I finalize my statement, including 104.
Please do. I think, let's take this
Yeah,
opportunity.
if there are any corrections, don't wait until the end.
Oh.
We need to correct them so that we know what the position is. Yeah, okay. So that is the one, and you will let us know if there is another one that you want to make.
I want to make that correction in terms of 103 and 104.
Let's start with 103 first, if you may.
Okay. I wish that 103 should read as thus, in addition to what I had added about the tea in the foyer. I did not go public on the Saxon World incident immediately. The Joint Standing Committee of Intelligence, of which I was a member, would
Okay,
meet-
you are reading from paragraph 103 at the moment.
Yes, Chair.
Yeah, okay.
I, however, did discuss the matter of the Guptas with committee members.
Well, I'm sorry, are you reading or
I'm
amending?
I'm changing, Chair.
Okay, tell us first what it is that is wrong, that you see as not correct now, and what you want to say before we look at the formulation. Tell us what it is that is not correct that you said in that paragraph, and what you want to say about it now.
What I want to remove was reference to the encounter in paragraph 103, but I wanted to retain my discussion, my informal discussion, when I was a member of the portfolio committee with the likes of Tlengwe Mgabadeli, Dennis Bloom, and Mr. Kwele, that I would like to keep.
Okay, I did not go public on the Saxon World incident immediately. That is still true. Is that right?
Yes, Chair.
Then the next sentence, the Joint Standing Committee on Intelligence, of which I was a member, met on Wednesdays. Is that still true?
Yes, Chair. I had wanted to add to that, the Joint Standing Committee on Intelligence, which I was a member, met on Wednesday. I had also wanted to add the time frame that would say it was from 2004 to 2000 and whatever. But that would still hold.
Yeah, well, is there any significance to the dates you wanted to add?
The dates would only clarify what Ms. Silo is saying,
Okay.
that Mr. Kwele was not a member of the committee at the period.
Okay, no.
Yes.
We don't need to amend this. What you may say when you are asked a question is this is the correct position, and you indicate if you were mistaken in any way with what you said here without us amending this.
I see.
So in other words, you just clarify. Okay. So maybe let's get back to the question you wanted to
The question
put,
then,
yeah.
Chair, was reference to Mr. Siyabonga Kwele as the chair of the committee in paragraph 103 cannot be correct because he was a minister at that time.
She conceded that.
Yes.
Yeah,
Now,
next.
so we say we remove reference to Mr. Siyabonga Kwele.
Well, we don't remove. She put it there, but she is now conceding it was not correct to include him.
Then I want to find out whether the words in the brackets following his name, the chair of the committee, does she maintain that you disclose to the chair of the committee, accepting it was not Mr. Kwele, we made a mistake?
Chair,
Or-
I've considered that Mr. Kwele, at the time of the offer, Saxon World offer, was not chair of the committee.
Okay.
Yes, who was the chair? Do you know?
No. Chair, maybe I should do my correction in totality, Chair.
Well, okay. Do the correction without interfering with the document.
Okay.
You know what you said in paragraph 103
3 and 4.
and 104.
Yes, Chair.
Tell us, this is what you said in that paragraph. It's not correct. This is the correct position. And yeah.
What I said in 103 and 104 is that I did not disclose immediately. I disclosed, in addition to what I said in the transcript, I disclosed informally to a number of committee members, some of whom were Mr. Gabadeli, Mr. Bloom, who took the interest in the matter. That is what is reflected currently in my statement.
Yes, and Dr. Kwele, I think
Yes.
it's Dr. Kwele.
Now,
Yes.
I've considered that at the time of Saxon World, I was no longer, Mr. Kwele was no longer the chair of the portfolio committee. He was no longer sitting on the portfolio committee. What I want to bring to the chair is that I have disclosed informally, not disclosed, I had proposed informally before members of the committee that the issue of the Guptas needs to be discussed at one stage. I may have confused that with the period of the Saxon World encounter. So I don't know how to deal with 103 and 104.
Okay, I'm not sure that I follow the last point you made about you being confused. Just repeat that point.
Chair,
What is it that you may have confused? That's what I want to understand.
the period at which I recommended to members of the Portfolio Committee on Intelligence that the Gupta must be discussed.
Okay, are you now telling me that at a certain stage you did ask the Portfolio Committee on Intelligence to discuss the issue of your offer from the Gupta family to you to be Minister of Public Enterprises?
Chair, that's what is currently reflected in the statement.
Yes, yes.
But what I am saying right now is, I did propose informally to members of this Standing Committee on Intelligence, whilst myself and Mr. Kwele and others were members, that the issue of the Guptas should be discussed.
Now, well, what I just asked you was exactly the same thing. The only difference is that I linked it to the offer that you told us was made to you by Mr. Ajay Gupta. So I'm asking whether what you are telling me now is that you told the Portfolio Committee on Intelligence, or you proposed to them, to that committee, that the issue of the offer that had been made to you by the Guptas should be discussed, or whether it was something else about the Guptas that you wanted to be discussed.
Thank you, Chair. It was not the issue of the offer. It was the issue of the Guptas.
Okay. Now, when you made that proposal, when was that, if you are able to remember? I'm not talking about the date, I'm just talking even just about the year or months or whatever.
It was the period during which I was still a member of the Portfolio Committee, Chair, and when Dr. Kwele was still the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee.
And that was from which year to which year?
I think it was from 2000 well, we became members of the Portfolio Committee from 2004 until the end of the term, election term.
Which was 2009, early 2009.
No, Chair, I'm actually mistaken, because there was a problem, remember there was a reshuffling, there are things that happened in 2007.
Oh, well, I wouldn't remember any reshuffling at that time.
I cannot know for sure until what time.
Well, there was a change of president
yes.
in 2008 when President Mbeki was recalled and President Motlanthe was installed.
Myself and Mr. Kwele and Mr. Ngabadeli were members of the Standing Committee on Intelligence from 2004, I think, until that time when that change was effected, if I'm not wrong.
Okay, so are you saying that somewhere between 2004 and 2008, maybe 2009, you did propose to the Portfolio Committee on Intelligence that the Guptas be discussed? Now, is that what you are saying? Or something about the Guptas be discussed, and I want you to tell us what that was, or what that was that you wanted to be discussed.
I think it was in 2008, Chair.
What did you propose should be discussed concerning the Guptas?
When you, there was a lot of media reports about the Guptas at that time. And in the foyer of the portfolio committee where we used to hold the meetings, there was a picture of President Mbeki with one shoe and one sandal, one footband when he was doing an Indian state visit. In that foyer, there was also a television where when we have tea, there would be news. And then there was news flashing about the Guptas. And then I said informally, I think we need to discuss this family.
But how is that relevant to the issue of when you made the disclosure to the committee that you talk about, the disclosure that you talk about in paragraph 103 or 104, or are you saying you may have been mistaken to say you made a disclosure in 2010, maybe you confused it with your proposal in 2008 to the Portfolio Committee on Intelligence to say you needed to discuss the issue of the Guptas?
Yes, Chair. Insofar as my discussion with the committee, which was informal about the Guptas, I'm submitting that I confused that with the issue of disclosing the offer.
Okay. What is the position now? Did you disclose formally or informally to any member or members of the Portfolio Committee on Intelligence your encounter at Saxon World?
Yes, Chair.
And which year was that when you made the disclosure?
I know for now, for certain, that in 2010, I discussed that matter with Mr. Bloom. I have said also to the legal team of the commission, I may have discussed it with Mrs. Ngabadeli might be able to corroborate. I also said to the, as member of the Standing Committee on Intelligence.
Okay, so you did make a disclosure in 2010 to some members of the Portfolio Committee on Intelligence, is that right?
Yes,
That's what
Chair.
you are saying.
Yes, Chair.
And you say one of those members of that committee was Mr. Dennis Bloom, is that right?
Yes, Chair.
And with regard to other members of that committee, is there anyone in respect of whom you are certain that you did disclose?
I had asked I've given a name to the legal team, and the legal team have done work and contacted that person. I did not want to go ahead of Ms. Sillo to talk about that because I understood that she would still.
Yeah,
go.
no,
It's
but
Ms.
my question.
Ngabadeli, yes.
Yeah, but my question is simply whether you are certain, because from what you say, I think you are saying you are certain that you disclosed to Mr. Dennis Bloom. Is
Yes,
that right?
Yes.
So I'm asking you whether there's any other member of that committee in respect of whom you are able to say, I am certain that I disclosed to him or her.
I am certain that I disclosed to Ms. Ngabadeli. Whether she will recall or she will not recall, I do not know, Chair.
Yes. Are those the only two members of the committee, or are there other members of the committee to whom you made the disclosure?
Only those two, Chair.
And was the disclosure informal or formal?
Informal, Chair.
Informal.
Yes, Chair.
And when you gave evidence later on, and I made this amendment last year on your statement, you said you had informally disclosed to members of the committee who were present, and I'm reading now, as we were having tea before the formal meeting could start. Now, you have considered that Dr. Kwele could not have been involved there because he was no longer a member of the committee. Now, what I want to ask is whether these two members that you say you disclosed to, do you know whether you disclosed to them individually, separately, or whether they were together when you disclosed, such as that maybe you were having tea with them before the start of a particular meeting of the committee?
Chair, the tea incident, as I've already considered, happened in around 2008, which was
Oh.
before the offer.
Oh, okay.
And I've sought to correct that.
Yes.
But then the individuals, I would still say that around the tea issue, I said the Guptas must be discussed. But with the members, I would have discussed individually. I had said to the legal team also, not in the sessions of the commission, that Ms. Ngabadeli was my neighbor in Parliament,
Yes.
and that we both had an intelligence background, and that we would discuss a whole range of issues that are
Yes.
of national security matters.
Yes,
So
yes.
I would, in my mind, I would have disclosed to them individually also
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. And it's in 2010.
in 2010.
Yes. Thank you. Ms. Selo?
If I may then just clarify one issue. So you correct your testimony insofar as it suggests that you disclose this, the offer being made to you, to Ms. Ngabadeli and Mr. Bloom prior to the portfolio committee meeting as you were having tea. We should forget that. It's wrong.
Yes, because I'm saying that I requested that we discuss the Guptas, not the offer.
No, I'm saying the offer itself, insofar as the offer is concerned, you were wrong. That conversation didn't take place. Okay. And for the record, you do recall that Mr. Bloom was no longer a member of the portfolio committee
Well,
in 2010.
I'm sorry, just so that it's recorded, the witness
Oh,
has
yes.
nodded when you put that question.
The chair is
Try
captured.
and
Yes?
make sure it's captured in the record. Yes, thank you.
So we shall
Proceed.
amend paragraph 103 accordingly. Thank you, Chair.
And four.
No, we are not amending it. We are hearing what she is saying. We know what she had said before. She is now providing a certain clarification that statement remains as it is.
Okay,
The
Chair.
time to amend it was when she was giving evidence at that time.
Yes, Chair.
Because at that time we wanted to know whether after it had been prepared and before she started giving evidence, she had picked up any inaccuracies that she wanted to amend. We amended. Now, if she picks up anything, we're not amending it, she is clarifying if she has picked up anything. Okay?
Clarified, Chair.
All right.
You understood what the Chair says. I have. Thank you. So we know that Mr. Bloom was not a member of the Portfolio Committee on Intelligence in 2010.
Yes.
So it is not in that context that you revealed that you made the disclosure to him.
Yes.
Now, at bundle D6A, we have the statement of Mr. Dennis Bloom at page 176.
What's the page number?
And at paragraph 3, in particular paragraph 3.1.2, Mr. Bloom does state that he served in that committee from 1999 until 2009. You see that?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, if you turn over leaf at 117, paragraph 6,
177.
177, ma'am. He recounts the conversation he had with you in 2010. And he states, and I read for the record, around August 2010 and after recess, I recall receiving a call from Ms. Mento, then a member of parliament representing the African National Congress. Next paragraph, she said she wanted to see me. We met in parliament in one of the lounges over tea. She said to me the Gupta brothers invited her to their residence in Saxonwold. She further told me that they offered her a ministerial position. They said they could make her a Minister of Public Enterprises. I've read up to paragraph 11. I'll stop for now. do you understand Mr. Bloom to suggest, firstly, that this conversation between you and him occurred in August 2010? And would he be correct in so contending?
Well, maybe he doesn't say in August, he says around August.
Around August, after recess. The chair will recall earlier when I presented the parliamentary program for 2010, I was trying to establish exactly when recess was. But so
Yes.
far we haven't been able to, because there's
Yeah.
a reference to a constituency period, and Ms. Mento said it could be, either way.
Yes. I think the question Ms. Silo put to you, Ms. Mento, is simply this. Mr. Bloom acknowledges that there was an occasion when you told him about your encounter at Saxon World, or the offer that you said had been made, but he says he thinks that was around August 2010. You want to say anything about either the time? I mean, you said September, but you are not, you have never said you are rigid about anything. There was also mention of October. If there is something you want to say about his suggestion that it was August, you may say so, but if you don't see anything significant, it's fine.
Chair, it says around August, but the offer wouldn't have been in August, around August, in the sense that the state visit was towards the end of August, and I was in Saxon World about 2 weeks or so
After that.
after that. So
He may
we
be
sometimes
mistaken
make,
about
in our recollections, we make mistakes with dates.
Yeah,
I
that's
myself,
fine.
there is a date that I need to
Yeah.
correct in my statement pertaining to
Yes.
Mr. Mtolo.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't want to hang Mr. Bloom
Yeah.
over the issue of August.
No, that's
Especially
fine.
because that's the one thing,
Yeah.
other than he seems to be corroborating.
Yeah, no, that's fine. So, okay, Ms.
Thank you, Chair. At paragraph 9, and I would invite you to explain this, because according to Mr. Bloom, he was informed of by yourself. And he states, she said to me the Gupta brothers invited her to their residence in Saxon World. Were you, my understanding of that is you attended at the Saxon World residence, at the Gupta residence, on the invitation of the Gupta brothers. Is that what you communicated to Mr. Bloom?
Chair, I don't know. I don't know why. I don't know how I can explain the use of language by
Yes.
Mr. Bloom. I was not invited.
Yes.
On that day, I thought I was going to see the president.
Yes.
I ended up in the Gupta residence. Now, if I must account for the use of language,
Well, what you are being given an opportunity to do is to say, yes, that's what I told Mr. Bloom, or no, he's mistaken, that's not what I said, and that's not what I could have said because of ABCD. Maybe he was mistaken, maybe he misunderstood. I couldn't have said I was invited. I was not invited. This is the position. In other words, you have got to look at what you told him or may have told him. It's a long time ago, and he might be mistaken, but it might have been his genuine understanding of what you told him. So you are being given an opportunity to say, well, that's how he understood, but that's not based on what I said, or that can't be based on what I said, because there's no way I could have said I was invited to the Gupta residence.
I don't know how Mr. Bloom understood me, Chair.
Yeah, but tell us what you told him, or what you must have told him if you can't remember what you
What
told
I
him.
must have told him is that I ended up in the Gupta residence whilst I thought I was going to see the president, and in the Gupta residence I was offered a ministerial position.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Mentor. And just to perhaps conclude then on what Mr. Bloom states in his statement, at paragraph 19 for the record, he does state that you said when they took her out of the room, her being you, and on the way out to the car, but in the house, she met the former head of state, President Jacob Zuma, and she said to me, she told him what happened inside that room where they were. So,
Yes.
yes.
That might be how Mr. Bloom understood or how he recalled because of the passage of time. But actually, I met the president inside the house when he walked in and told him inside the house what had happened. And at the end of everything, the president walked me out of the house to the vehicle that was going to take me to the airport.
Mr. Ajay Gupta did not walk you out together
No,
with the
he
former
remained
president?
seated in the
Yeah.
house.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair. That's all I wanted to bring your attention to as regards Mr. Bloom's statement that is relevant for this issue. Returning then to paragraph 104 of your statement, you remember earlier you had said you wanted to say something about both 103 and 104. Now at 104, you record what supposedly took place inside now the portfolio committee meeting itself, and you suggest that the chairperson at the time, Mr. Gwele, persuaded the committee not to take the matter further, and that you'd refer it to Lutuli House. You see that? Now, in light of the fact that now we know it could not have been Mr. Gwele, Chair.
Sorry, Chair. My name is Anthony Gotts. I'm
Yes.
representing Ms. Mentor today.
Yes.
We'd like to make an objection on the manner in which Mr. Bloom's statement has been put to Ms. Mentor. There have been 2 paragraphs out of a total of 19 paragraphs which have been put to Ms. Mentor with minor, insignificant differences between her evidence and that which Mr. Bloom says. There are considerable amounts of paragraphs in the statement which corroborate this witness's evidence, which have not been highlighted. And we have an objection to the manner in which the statement is being put. It is very significant, Chair. It is extremely significant that Mr. Bloom. Sorry, Chair.
I think what you should do, if you have some concern, and you may or may not have done this already, I don't know. If you have got some concern in regard to how Ms. Silo is dealing with the putting questions to Ms. Mentor, raise it with him, give her a note, and she would look at that and try and apply her mind to your concern. But of course, if in the end that doesn't help, feel free to raise it. But I don't think that she intended in any way not to, she intended to conceal any part that might support Ms. Mentor's version. But also you need to bear in mind, I don't know what's in her mind, that Mr. Bloom is still going to be called, who will give evidence about her statement in full. So it may well be that all that Ms. Silo wants to do for now is to say there are only these areas of concern in regard to your version in the light of what Mr. Bloom says. But it's not as if Mr. Bloom is not going to be called to come and deal with his entire statement, in which whatever it is that he has got in his statement that supports Ms. Mentor's version will be highlighted.
Chair, if the position of the evidence leaders is that they accept that Mr. Bloom's statement and the evidence that he will give corroborates on a contemporaneous basis what Ms. Mentor has said, then we are happy. The concern that I'm raising is that the suggestion is that there are issues of difference between the two without highlighting in a balanced way the fact that Mr. Bloem corroborates what she says in all material respects. Can I
Well,
say for the record, Chair, that
yes.
we have at numerous points
Yeah.
raised with Ms. Sello the fact
Yes.
that evidence does not appear to be put on a balanced basis. Inter alia, for example,
Yes.
there were issues raised in relation to the Emirates
Yes.
flight details
Yes.
yesterday, which,
Yes.
quite frankly,
Yes.
the significance of the fact that Duduzane Zuma, Ajay Gupta, and Rajesh Gupta were on
Yes.
that flight
Yes.
were not highlighted with this witness. So we have highlighted these
Yes.
concerns with Ms. Sello.
Yes. Okay, well, I just want to say, whether it's in regard to the same trip or not, but I do recall, I think both yesterday and today, when we dealt with the issue of who was on a certain flight, and Ms. Sello emphasizing that I think except for Mr. Atul Gupta, all the other 4 or 5 people, together with, I think, Ms. Mento, were there. So I think, let us do it this way. She is now aware of your concerns. Continue to raise them if there are still concerns. But at the end, before Ms. Mento is released, she, I'm sure, will want to cover, tie all the loose ends. And if there are any things or concerns, areas of concerns, she would try and cover that. And if you are still not satisfied, you can raise it with me in open.
Thank you very much, Chair.
Yes,
Indeed.
okay. Thank you, Ms. Sello.
Thank you, Chair. And Chair, just for the record and possibly to try and reassure my learned friend, Mr. Bloom's statement is in large part constitutes of hearsay. He says, Ms. Mento told me. And in some respects, what he claims Ms. Mento told him is not consistent with what Ms. Mento has testified to. It's incumbent upon me to give Ms. Mento an opportunity to comment on those discrepancies, because as soon as she leaves that witness stand, she is gone. When Mr. Bloom comes here and insists on his version of what he heard without having given Mrs. Mento an opportunity to respond to, it would be unfair to her. So the purpose of the entire exercise was not to suggest that Mr. Bloom disagrees with her or is inconsistent, or says stuff that is inconsistent. It was just to highlight specific aspects.
Yes.
As the chair says, Mr. Bloom is still coming. He will testify.
Yes.
And it will be put to him that what you allege in this paragraph, that Ms. Mento, for instance, says she said she was invited.
Yes.
Ms. Mento has indicated that she could not have said that. Then we take issue with
Yes.
Mr. Bloom.
Yes.
That was the intention,
Yeah,
Chair.
basically, at this stage, it's not the right time to talk about what Mr. Bloom's may be saying that is in agreement with what Ms. Mento says.
Indeed,
What's
Chair.
important is to say, to put to her what Mr. Bloom says that is not in line with what Ms. Mento has said, and give her a chance to deal with it.
Indeed, Chair. That's what I'm
Because
saying.
that which is in support of Ms. Mento is not going to be problematic,
Indeed, Chair.
because it will be highlighted in due course.
I fully
But what Mr. Bloom says seems to differ from her evidence. It's important to give her a chance to deal with it.
Indeed, Chair. And that was the
Yes.
intention, Chair.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Mento, we were then dealing with your paragraph 104 of the statement.
Sorry, Chair.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
I accept what the chair's response had been to my senior counsel's observation.
Yes.
I want to put it on record also that to a very large extent, Mr. Bloom corroborates or correctly captures
Yeah,
what I told him.
okay.
And I would like to put it on record that the few things that may not be in line, and they are fewer than those that are correct in terms of what I told him. I don't hold those things against him. I don't know if it is an issue of time in terms of his memory, but I would like to point it out that the large part of his statement actually corroborates my version.
No, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with you saying what you make of his affidavit. Ms. Silo has briefly indicated what she thinks of the affidavit. And I think part of what she is saying is there are certain things that seem to be not in line, but that is not to say there are no things that are in line, but she emphasizes that largely whatever Mr. Bloom says is not something that he independently observed. It's something that he says he got from you. I think that's what she is saying. Okay, let's go.
Thank you, Chair.
Sorry, Ms. Mento.
Mento.
Chair, I would like to ask you a question that's not pertaining to Mr. Bloom necessarily
Yes.
statement. I would like to ask a question, Chair, whether, because I'm not a lawyer
Yes.
and I don't understand how things are done,
Yes.
I was going to give you my experience at the end, but I might as well give it to you right now and ask this question right now because an opportunity avails itself.
Well, one of the benefits of you having legal representatives who are here is that some of the things you can raise with them because they can explain them to you away from the hearing. And if they give you an explanation, you might be happy and there's no need for us to deal with it at the hearing. But it may be that you are not happy and you still feel you need to raise them with me in this hearing, in which case I will allow you. But it does help if some of the things are raised with the lawyers because they can talk to the legal team and maybe they are clarified and we don't have to use this time to deal with them. But only if it's something where really whatever explanation or has been given is not satisfactory, then you raise them. Does that give you a way to deal with them or you'd still like to raise it?
I'd still like to address you, Chair.
Okay, address me.
Thank you. Chair, for the better part of me being on the witness stand,
Yes.
from August last year to date, I have felt that I had had to deal with, in the main, issues that are not corroborating in any way my version before you and my testimony.
Yes.
I have felt that all the time I had been made to feel like my role as a witness all the way is to explain and deal with whatever does not corroborate anything. Whatever has corroborated my evidence so far has never been put to me. I have felt that I've actually throughout the process been cross-examined and been cross-examined on issues that seem to contradict. Whatever contradicts my version. This is what I have experienced and
Yes.
this is what I feel.
Yes.
Hence, even in my supplementary statement that was sent 2 days ago. It's an effort to say, but there had been issues and people that have corroborated whatever evidence I have put before the commission. So I have felt that I've been cross-examined all the way and questioned all the way. My evidence has been questioned all the way and all the time. And
Yes.
nothing that corroborates my evidence has actually been brought forward. And I
Yes.
think that
Yes.
is a disbalance.
Yes. Okay, let me explain this. One, I indicated last year when you came for the first time how much I and this commission appreciated your coming forward to assist the commission. That remains the position. We appreciate each and every witness who comes and shares what they know or what they experienced that falls under our terms of reference. That's the first point. But the second point is that as a commission, we don't take any particular position in regard to any witness's evidence as to whether that's the evidence or version that we like and we want to hear and we want to be corroborated. What we do is we try and look at evidence as is presented and look at all possible areas or perspectives from which it can be looked at. We look at what may corroborate you, we look at what may not corroborate you. It may be that at certain times the focus might seem to be on what might not be in line necessary with your evidence. If that does happen, it can only be because there might be no need to worry about what supports what you are saying, but there is a need to check what about that which seems not to be in line with you, to see if it's valid or not valid, because we've got to look at all angles, okay? And the questions that are put to you, both by a member of the legal team and by myself, are intended to satisfy me of whatever areas. Yesterday I said to you the question of whether there is, of your having traveled from Cape Town to Johannesburg is very important. I mentioned that. I mentioned that in part because I wanted you to appreciate that it's very important that if there is any evidence that indicates one way or another whether that traveling, that trip took place, we must look at it. Because I think, as I said to you, if I can't say how you got to Saxon World, there might be difficulty with saying, yes, there was this encounter at Saxon World. Now, if I mention something like that, namely it's very important, it's so that you know what's going on in my mind, and it gives you an opportunity to say, the chairperson has said this is important, so if we need to do some work to put evidence before, we must do that. In other words, I'm not going to sit back and not tell you this is important and you rest and you think it's okay, and then you don't bring more information when you could have. So this is all part of making sure that there is transparency and there is fairness. But there are time constraints as we do all of these things, and resources are limited, both in terms of time and in terms of money, we can do certain things up to a certain point, you know. So we try to strike a balance, okay? So as I say, therefore, where you might think, why is it not being mentioned? Why is this thing not being mentioned? Because it corroborates what I'm saying. It may be because the member of the legal team is not so concerned about that for now. Is concerned about what might be against you, and if we are satisfied how you have dealt with that, and we have no questions on what supports you, that might be a way of dealing with it, rather than dealing with everything, even if there is no particular concern about it. You understand? But I can assure you that this legal team is not intending to favor your version or not favor your version. What they are interested in is to make sure that they ask questions which will enable me, when all this is finished, to have enough evidence to be able to make findings one way or another. And I've said there'll be fairness to witnesses, there'll be fairness to implicated persons, and so on and so on. You might realize that earlier on last year, maybe you might not have been asked some of the questions that you may perceive as maybe difficult or not difficult, but since then there has been time to reflect on issues, look at other evidence, do further investigations, and it is only fair that certain issues be raised with you. But I can assure you that there is no intention on the part of any member of the legal team not to treat you fairly. I don't say that they don't make mistakes. We all do. But certainly in terms of the intention and the commitment to do the right thing, that is there. But as I've said before, where there are concerns, do raise them with your legal team, and if need be, they can be raised with me. I want to hear them. Okay? Okay, all right. Thank you. Does that help you in any way in terms of perspectives?
It helps me, Chair, and what helps me a lot also is your fairness and your balanced approach. So that helps me a lot, and that eases my fears, Chair.
No, as I told you, you mentioned this morning that you had asked the legal team to investigate with regard to the issue of that cab, that car for the Guptas that you told about, and I mentioned that I had also asked them to investigate that and find out. So some of these things we want them to be looked into, and so that in the end, what is before the commission is as much information that's relevant as possible.
Whilst we are here, may I also submit that I had requested the legal team to try and get hold of Ms. Caesar Nzimela, who was the CEO of SAA at the time in 2010 when I was given the offer, because I had said to the legal team, including in my statement, I had called her to my office in Parliament and said to her, what would you say if somebody said to you, you must cancel the SAA route to India? So I hope when the team goes to investigate the issue of the twin camp, they would also still, as I had requested last year, seek to get a statement from Ms. Caesar Nzimela.
Yes, okay. Thank you. I'm very keen that you finish so that when we come back, it would be cross-examination.
Yes, Chair.
How far are you from finishing? I'm not saying don't raise issues that you wanted to raise, but I just want us to get to a point where we start with cross-examination.
I'd hoped to have finished by now, but Chair, if I may quickly probably go through certain things.
Yes, yes. Then
I-
we can take the lunch break after
Then
you are done.
After I've done
Yeah.
that. We're still dealing with paragraph 104 on Ms. Mentor's statement,
Yeah,
where she relates a discussion that took place in the portfolio committee regarding the offer made to her by the Guptas. Now, for the record, Ms. Mentor, we have established that when Dr. Kwele, to be precise, was appointed minister, Mr. Cecil Burgess, if I'm calling it correctly, for the record, that's Burgess, took over as chairperson of the committee, portfolio committee. Do you have any recollection of that period?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now, if I look at paragraph 104 then, and we know that it's no longer Mr. Kwele, did this discussion take place with the chair being Mr. Burgess? Or what is the position?
104 was related to 103, and it was related to the discussion in the foyer, which we have already spoken about. So I don't know what you want me to do with 104, Ms. Sello.
I think what she has said is that the amendment that, at her request, we effected at the end of paragraph 103,
Yes, Chair.
which talked about an informal disclosure to certain members of the committee at the foyer, I think, or when they were having tea. She said that related to 2008 and not the issue of the offer made to her by the Gupta
Yes,
family.
Chair.
Yes. So that's how she distinguished it, I think.
May I repose then? Does
Yeah.
what you state in 104 also relate to that event in 2008 and not the 2010?
Yes, ma'am, and you are right to say that then the issue of the name of Mr. Kwele becomes irrelevant and do not belong to 104.
No, the chair pointed out to me that in terms of what you state in 103, that is a conversation that was had in 2008.
Yes.
So should we also accept that what the chairperson, Mr. Dwele, said at 104 is also in 2008, not in 2010? Should we read it that way?
Say again?
I think you just need to break it up. You originally, or rather, your statement as it stands here, before you have clarified it, is to the effect that Dr. Kwele was present together with Ms. Mkabateli and Mr. Bloom when you made an informal disclosure to them about Saxon World when you were having tea. You have clarified that to say that conversation actually relates to 2008 and doesn't relate to the offer that the Guptas made to you. It relates to a proposal you had made in 2008 to the committee that there be a discussion about the Guptas. That's what you have clarified. Now, in the statement, one of the things you had said was that when certain members of the Portfolio Committee on Intelligence requested that there be a discussion of your encounter, as I understand it, the chairperson, Mr. Kwele, Dr. Kwele, had suggested another route to handle that. Her question is whether this suggestion of another route belonged to the discussion in 2008 and not to the 2010 discussion.
Yes, Chair. It belongs to the discussion of 2008, where I said the Guptas must be discussed,
Yes.
as I had
Yes.
explained today.
Yes, because you say now that in 2010, the disclosure that you made was to individual members of the committee, and there were only two Mr. Bloom and Ms. Mkabadeli.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Then, Chair, if I may conclude on, and thank you for that clarification, Ms. Mento. Conclude on that aspect. We have Mr. Bloom's statement. We currently do not have Ms. Mgabadeli's statement, although we have engaged and consulted with her. Her difficulty was that she did not recall a discussion in the portfolio committee and in the terms that Ms. Mento has stated in the statement. We shall now revert to her and give her the correct position and see if she has a recollection on those issues, Chair.
Okay, all right.
You understand, Ms. Mento?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I then would like to move on to the question of IPID, very quickly, if I may.
Question of?
IPID, IPID.
Yes, okay.
And you had indicated in your the previous time you testified that we should obtain the statement of Captain Viri. You recall, Ms. Mento?
Yes, ma'am.
And we have done so, and that is to be found at bundle D6A, page 179.
Sorry, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
You said we're dealing with IPID,
Yes.
and then you're dealing with Mr. Viri.
Yeah, I noticed that in your, unless I make a mistake, in your supplementary affidavit, you make mention of the fact that you required, insofar as the IPID issue is concerned, to obtain the statement of Captain Viri. Did we misunderstand your instruction?
No, you didn't.
Okay.
It's just that what sprang to my mind when you said Viri and you said, I associate Viri with the police and I associate IPID with McBride. So I might have confused myself.
Okay. Then, while we are on it then, let's take away IPID. We have the statement of Captain Viri as you have requested. Maybe we should dispose of it. And it refers to the time that you went to you required the services of the police station to lodge a complaint or a charge sometime during May 2016. Do you recall that?
Yes, ma'am.
And in this statement, Captain Viri does confirm your communication with him in this
Where are you in the bundle?
page 179, D6A. And I'm saying he does confirm that you had that discussion with him and how he acted pursuant thereto. He confirms that he took charge of your statement for safekeeping, that is your handwritten statement, until it was transferred or taken to Lieutenant General Ndlemeza. So Captain Viri's statement deals with your allegation that you made a statement, which statement you were subsequently told was transferred or handed over to General Ndlemeza, and nothing was done about the statement further. So Captain Viri says that yes, he kept it, or he had it for safekeeping until he was instructed to hand it over to General Ndlemeza. So it accords with what you have testified to.
Yeah, I'm following you, ma'am.
Okay, so you agree. I just wanted you to satisfy yourself that insofar as that is concerned, Captain Viri agrees with what you've testified before us.
Yes, Captain Viri agrees with a whole lot of things that I detailed in my statement in terms of what happened to my statement,
Yes.
my original statement,
Yes.
and everything else. So it's a lengthy thing, but most of it corroborates in fact, all of it corroborates what I've said in my statement. I would like to ask, ma'am, Captain Viri's ID number appears here. Is it only appearing before me?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes. As I indicated earlier, because you are the witness, we tend not to tamper with the witness's bundle so that it looks exactly the same as what the chair has before him. But before all these statements are released, the details will be removed, including the telephone numbers. That's a standard procedure. Okay, then if that takes care of your statement, which is dealt with further and we have dealt with this, in your engagement with Mr. Mtolo and Ms. Munonopi. You recall that? Ms. Mentor?
Just before we go to Ms. Mtolo and Ms. Mononopi, Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
whilst we are still on Mr. Viri,
Yes, ma'am.
I just want to bring this document to your attention and to the attention of the Chair that relates to my further interactions with Mr. Viri.
I don't have an issue, and I'm sure the chair would like to hear that. Can you
Yes.
explain what document that is?
It is a copy of my message to Brigadier General Viri on the 1st of November 2017 at 5:20, in which the message reads, "Hi comrade, please help me to get a copy of my original statement that I made when I opened that case against corruption of Zuma ministers and SOE people." I table this right now, Chair, but I'm also going to refer to it when I deal with the Mtolo case later. I just want to submit it.
Yes, Ms. Mentor.
Okay,
If I may,
yeah,
we were provided with that
yes,
document this morning
yes,
by Ms. Mentor's legal team,
yes,
and it has yet to be submitted into evidence,
yes, yeah,
and we've taken note of it.
yeah, okay,
I just point out that that is a conversation she had with Captain Viri in November 2017,
yes,
and it is post the events that Captain Viri speaks of at page 179.
okay, all
Yes.
right.
So, Chair, if...
You will still deal with it, you haven't had time to apply your mind to it?
We have,
Oh,
and we would
okay.
like to submit it into evidence, Chair,
Yeah.
through
Yeah.
Ms. Mentor's legal representatives. Ms.
Yes.
Mentor would like to have it on record, and as she had
Well,
indicated...
do you want to put it up now, or do you want to do that later? Have you applied your mind to it properly?
I was attempting to do it now because I still had the hope that I'll finish with Ms. Mentor before she rises for lunch.
Yes,
So-
let's try and finish that, but
Yes.
All I want is that you don't give me something that you haven't had time to apply your mind to. That's all. If you say you have
No, I
applied your
have.
mind.
I have. It was
and-
given to me in the morning. Chair,
Yes,
so I've
okay.
had opportunity.
You want to put it up to,
Yes, I would like to put it up and
Okay.
submit. It's a two-page document.
let's do that then.
And it should then follow on the numbering after the
Okay, will somebody work that out
Yes.
and then it will be put up later?
it's a two-page
let's
document.
Let's finish with.
That will
with-
take us to
for now,
619.
yeah.
Moving on then, so you are satisfied with the issue of Captain Viri. The issue then is you testified that you had laid certain complaints at IPID. And we communicated with IPID, and we forwarded you their response, which was a letter. The letter indicated that the complaint you had brought to them is not what you testified to in the commission. You rejected that and you called upon them to file formal statements to the commission. That response was communicated to IPID Chair. The letter had been received from a Mr. T.S. Leholo, that's Leholo, who's the provincial head of IPID in the Western Cape, and it suggested that Mr. Meyer, M-E-Y-E-R, dealt with Ms. Mentor's complaint on the day, and the complaint was not what she had testified to before you. We have requested statements, and to date we have not received any, Chair.
Okay,
So to the extent that it may be necessary, we'll request the chair to invoke his powers to call both Mr. Leholo of the provincial IPID in the Western Cape and Mr. Mayor, who suggests that he is the person who dealt directly with Ms. Mentor on the day.
well, you must have that dealt with properly, because you are able to get people to do certain things in regard to assist the commission, and I can do certain things. Just apply your mind to what needs to be done. They have been given a reaction, a response, but they have not come back. You haven't told me. You have gone back to them and say, what's going on? Why are you taking so long? And you haven't spoken. You haven't told me you have spoken to the head of IPED to say your people are not dealing with matters expeditiously.
What I can confirm, Chair, is indeed we have been in contact with them to obtain the statements after we informed them of the direct request. And notwithstanding persistent requests, we have failed to obtain.
Have you spoken to the head of IPED?
No, no. Qualify that, Chair.
Yeah.
This is being undertaken by our investigators. I'll have to establish how
Yeah.
far high they took it.
Yeah.
If-
Okay.
So the issue of IPED is, as far as the persons are concerned, that's where it stands.
Well, you must take the necessary steps to have finality on what we should have in terms of documents, statements, or whatever, and information. Ms. Mentor?
Chair, it's not my intention to argue with Ms. Silo. I just want to further submit that she did provide us with a response from the IPED, and myself and the legal team had requested that indeed Mr. Mayor refused to assist me. There is a guy that refused to assist me on that day because their letter claims that I did not lay a complaint. But then I forwarded, that's when I said, I ended up speaking to the head of IPED himself, Mr. McBride, and then I said even the telephonic records would prove that. And in the second page of the state that I've just
The
given
letter.
now, Chair,
Yeah.
is my Facebook post, which contradicts the response that the letter of IPED says. Because in the letter, they claim that I did not go to complain about members of the Hawks and how they handled my statement from
Yeah.
Mr. Viri. But then
Yeah.
there is proof
Yeah.
that I've attached
Yes.
that on that day I went to complain about the Hawks
Yeah.
and how they.
Well, the legal team and investigators must sort this thing out
We are trying to sort it out,
Yeah.
Chair, and
urgently.
urgently, Chair.
Yeah.
And what Ms. Mentor refers to is her conversation with Mr. McBride around that complaint she had.
Yeah,
Um,
okay.
And I may place on record that the cell phone records we provided her do indicate communication between herself and and Mr. McBride. I don't know this thing.
Yeah.
But much as,
Such investigation as needs to be done, must be done, steps that need to be done, taken, must be taken, and then I'll hear about this again when that has been completed.
that is ongoing, Chair.
Okay.
And equally so to get Mr. McBride's statement, which also has not been filed.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. Is there anything else you would like to add as regards this?
Thank
I would then like to move on to the question of Mr. Mtolo. You will recall, and they're in the bundle, Mr. Mtolo provided two recordings and two transcripts of a consultation, for lack of a better expression, he had with you regarding your statement. You recall that?
Yes, ma'am.
It transpires, and it became apparent to the legal team on Friday, this past, that you two had submitted to the attorney a recording of one of the conversations you had with Mr. Mtolo. You also had recorded that consultation.
My legal team has communicated with the commission as way back as November last year, not on Friday, to bring it to to forward the recording and to request in writing repeatedly that that recording should also be made available into commission records, and that as much as Mr. Mtolo's recordings have been made into transcript, that recording should be made into transcript. We wrote several times, and we have also outlined that complaint in my second.
Supplementary affidavit.
Yes, so it's not Friday, it's
Yeah.
since last year, November.
Yes.
Okay, if I may clarify, because that's what I would like to place on record. I was talking about the legal team. We confirmed that as of November the 7th, 2018, the attorney for the legal team was served, it would turn out, with a recording provided by Ms. Mento. The subsequent communication to the commission consistently made reference to the second transcript. And the commission understood that to be the second transcript of Mr. Mtolo's recording. And it took steps for it to be provided. It only became apparent on Friday that there actually are 3 recordings, one of which is Ms. Mento's. And it was only then on Friday that we could act upon it and try and have the recordings transcribed, Chair.
Yes.
Now, I'm not suggesting, Ms. Mento, that you only brought it up on the 7th. I am putting on record that it came to my attention that there were 3 instead of 2, only on Friday when you brought it to my attention. You
But
Yeah.
to Mr. Mabunda, we made it abundantly clear in November already that that is a 3rd recording from me, and that it should be submitted to the commission record, and that it should be made into a transcript also, just as much as the 2 of Mr. Mtolo had been made into transcript.
We confirmed that, and that was your communication of the 7th, and we have since so established.
Let's put this to a stop.
Yes, Chair.
I have been told about all of this, and I assume that Ms. Mento, that the legal team has told Ms. Mento what happened.
Yes, Chair.
I'm very unhappy about the fact that the recording that she made available to the attorney for the commission, Mr. Mabunda, in November, was not passed on to the commission's legal team until, as I understand, last week,
Friday, Chair.
Friday. So the legal team was not aware of it, as I understand.
Yes, Chair.
I've called for an affidavit from him explaining what happened. I've been told that there is an affidavit, and I am yet to read it. I'm made to understand that there is no denial that the recording was received by his office in November. I'm made to understand that there were some administrative or other issues within the office that resulted in it not being sent to the legal team. I'm saying administrative or other issues, I was told, seems to have fallen through the cracks. So I'm unhappy about what happened, but we have a situation where Ms. Mento and her legal team are ready to proceed to try and finalize her evidence, and let's not waste time on that. It will be dealt with in the way it should be dealt with. It shouldn't have happened, but we need to get on.
Thank you, Chair. And if I may just place on record, we do apologize. The system has let Ms. Mento down, and we do apologize for that error as a commission on the whole. Ms. Mento, what I
Well,
want...
we are now about 28 minutes past 1. As I understand, you still want to put some questions to her in regard to Mr. Mtolo.
Yes, and I'm on that right
And
now.
how long do you think that will take?
That should not take more than 2 minutes, depending on her attitude,
Okay,
Chair.
all right.
Because my question was, Ms. Mento, you are aware of the contents of your own recording of that meeting with Mr. Mtolo.
Yes, ma'am.
You have been provided with and have had opportunity to consider the 2 transcripts provided by Mr. Mtolo.
Yes, ma'am.
What I would like to find out from you is, have you picked up any inconsistencies between any of the transcripts and the recording that you have?